Couldn't tell you what up. Uh, what's up, everybody? This is Timothy Gordon and Parish Orphans of Retrogrades. We are doing a nighttime show. What the heck? I wanted to bring together different corners of the Catholic internet. And to do so, I brought myself, I guess I'm one corner, and Anthony Abate from Avoiding Babylon, and Matthew Marsden, Matthew X Marsden. I'm going to assume your middle name is Xavier for the purposes of this show, Matt, and Patrick C. Coffin. I'm just assuming that your middle name begins with a C. So Matt Marsden, Pat Coffin, Anthony Abate. I thought that we could all get together and dissect some blind spots in the Catholic cosmology in our funny little world in the 21st century. So in this order, a definite pecking order: Anthony, hello; Matt Marsden, good evening; and Patrick Coffin, get out.
The Bible says the last shall be first. By the way, I feel like looking at the screen, I want to say, it's the story
of a lovely lady.
Yeah, very good. You passed. You passed the IQ test.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or just watching crappy 70s television test, which is the Brady Bunch.
But and yes, I'm like, I have no idea what these people are talking about.
Start in the 60s. It straddles the 60s and 70s. Said the bishop to the movie star. But enough about me. Tim, you talk about me.
Sure. I don't know what to say about the bishop and the movie star, but I do know that we have Anthony from Avoiding Babylon here, and I wanted to talk to you guys about some Catholic stuff. What's up, Anthony? Did you patch in from Long Island, or where are you at tonight?
Yeah, I'm in Long Island. I'm excited to meet Matt. I've never had a conversation with Matt before, and Patrick, Tim, you actually introduced Patrick and I, and now Patrick and I are going all the way to Italy together in December.
So, romantic. That's
yeah.
Oh,
isn't that adorable? And like
the relationship it took off pretty quickly.
Definitely did. It's moving a little quickly for me.
Yeah.
You guys aren't even married yet. I thought we could have a good conversation about a few things cultural that constitute blind spots for 21st century Catholics, and a few things top of the surface doctrinal that touch our daily lives, that it would be great to get kind of a panel approach to, because there's some really, really, really obvious stuff that we live with as Catholics, and I'd like to get everyone together and bitch about it. So let's start in this order. I'll go Anthony first, and then Matt, and then Pat. So, and then we'll reverse order or something. But first blind spot that Catholics we need to talk about. Let's start with a cultural one. Men of the Novus Ordo. I'll give you the table of contents first, so you know where we're going. I want to do cultural issue, men of the Novus Ordo. And I also want to talk about men of the trad men of the TLM. And I want to talk about Catholic women in the 21st century. And we'll probably alternate here with these doctrinal issues. The fact that we always brag to Protestants that we have this magisterium, and don't they wish they had one? Ooh. But we don't have a magisterium of the magisterium. We're not quite sure what our magisterium actually is, or what counts, or whatever, when it's contested. And then Vatican I and Vatican II are major blind spots. So we'll go back and forth. So start out, Anthony Abate. Everyone loves shitting on like normie men of the Novus Ordo. These guys are, often don't really even know they're Catholic. They're just being dragged there by their wives, and they don't really know anything about being Catholic at all, or they don't care anything about being Catholic at all. But there's some strengths there too that will come up when we talk about the typical men of the TLM. We're talking about the 95%. So what is it to be a man who occasionally finds yourself at the Novus Ordo? You're looking at the other men, and wow, this is a blind spot.
I had one of those experiences this weekend, actually. So I went up to visit my parents in Pennsylvania, and the only option I had was to attend the rural Pennsylvania parish. And we went in, and the average man was 75 years old, first off. So this parish, I can't see lasting more than 5 years. But your typical parish, I would think, if I had to go to mass at my local parish, it's comprised of very few people under 40, I think the average person going is probably going maybe out of some kind of lingering cultural Catholicism. A lot of people go out of heaven insurance. And I found that the people that actually do take their faith seriously, maybe they'll start like a men's group or something, but especially over the past few months, even talking with Patrick, like going over this with Patrick, discussing the difference in just the culture of the Novus Ordo and the Latin Mass is I learned my faith through outfits like Catholic Answers, and they equipped me to combat Protestant arguments, but they gave me absolutely no like spiritual warfare, getting myself ready to actually live in the world. So I knew how to give arguments on scripture and why sola scriptura is this and that, but it didn't actually teach me how to be a man. It didn't teach me how to actually go into the world and face some of the temptations that get thrown our way. So I mean, it's been a few years since I went to the Novus Ordo, other than like the occasional I have no choice. So I don't know, man. It seems like most people left it in the time of the 2020 era to go find something better. So you kind of have this intentional Catholicism in the trad parishes now, you know?
Yeah. And I would just throw this out there, because Pat obviously worked for Catholic Answers for 7 or 8 years. It's a bit like you want to go to the Olympics and everybody's like, okay, here's how you should train. Train against all these people in the Special Olympics. You know, that's what it feels like Catholic Answers has been doing for the last 5 years. It's like, hear all these arguments against Protestants. It's like, well, they're retarded. Like, we don't need these. I know Protestants have no defense of their faith. Like, I want to train for the Olympics. I want to train for, you know, teach people against counter arguments, how to argue against someone like Peter Diamond. These are the ones that are actually snagging, I think, knowledgeable or semi-knowledgeable Catholics from our ranks. So I don't know. What do you say? What do you say, Matt? I mean, you're probably at a Novus Ordo more often than
I am. I'm at a Novus Ordo more often. And there's a reason for that. And I can get into that on the next subject. And you know a little bit because we've spoken about it. But I think that there's an evolution, right? Like there's an evolution, as you were saying, that a lot of people might decide that they want to get back into the church. And so, I mean, I can talk to it from my experience, right? So I was out of the church and I came into the church, back into the church, and I was in a very, very, well, I didn't think it was really liberal at the time. You know what I mean? Because I was coming back to it, and you start learning, you're going through the motions, for a lot of people, it's just get the basics right. What do you do when you go to church? I hadn't been to mass, I don't think, since I was, maybe in my early 20s. And so I started going to this church, and luckily I had a really good pastor who then became a spiritual director, but he was like placed in that parish. Pat knows it. I think you probably know it, but I'm not going to say it on here. But it's down near the ocean in California. And so as time went by and I started reading more and more and more, the more I became frustrated with it, because there was, as you know, there's a lot of answers that in the spirit of Vatican II, which used to drive me bonkers. I'm like, I don't know what that means. What does that mean in the spirit of Vatican II? And then as you keep peeling the onion, I think you start going, well, hang on a second. I love the sacred music. I love the Latin. And so you start, this is what happened to me anyway. I started church hunting. And so, we landed on a great parish in Alhambra, in St. Therese, which was half Latin, half Novus Ordo, very reverent. And for us, it was a lot easier, because I say a lot easier. We had a big family. And I always felt when I went to the TLM that people wanted us to shut up when we were in there. Like, I always felt it was like, I don't want the kids there. That's certainly the vibe that I got. I'm not saying it's like that in every church, right? So that was my experience, kind of like an evolution. And I think that if you're really digging into your faith more and more and more, there is that evolution. And then when you go to a Latin mass, it's like, it's like this explosion.
We'll shit on them next. But let's
Huh?
now let's
Yeah,
shit on your typical kind of normie guy, you know.
Yeah,
that
but what?
goes
Yeah,
on Sunday to
I'm
the
getting
Bills.
there. I mean, because,
Okay.
but that's what I'm saying is, I think it's important to have charity because a lot of people, that is their gateway into getting to where they need to be. Like, not many people are that. And I think it's easy to get into like the intellectual debate with people that are looking like that have those thoughts. But I think that they will eventually get there. However kind of winding the path might be, and I know that's probably not what most people want to hear. I mean, but in the same instance, yeah, jingly jangly guitars drive me crazy. Not getting a proper absolution when you're coming out of the confession drives me bonkers. Not having proper reverence in the mass drives me crazy. Changing, which seems to be the way, they're very loosey goosey, the priests, that is, on the liturgy, even in the Novus Ordo, right?
Matt,
They go off
how
and
do
do
you
what they want to do.
how do you feel about people taking 20 minutes in confession when there's only a half an hour?
Oh,
Have
Matt
you been
has-
watching my tweets?
Matt has no thoughts about that matter.
Have you been looking at my tweets? Yeah, I'm like,
It's
I
a
mean,
pet
like that.
peeve of
Boom,
mine,
boom,
so.
boom, boom, boom. I'm like, you get in there, laundry list and out. It's not spiritual direction. So, but again, if people were actually educated on this, and I think that part of the issue is, and like you're saying, Pat, and like you said, Anthony, that these parishes are dying because people want to stand for something. They actually want that. They want the richness of the church. And in some way, I think that people think that if you like go the way of the Unitarians or go the way of the Church of England, and you kind of like be accepting of anyone, like I don't want to be part of a club that's accepting to everybody.
Yeah.
If you know what I'm saying. I mean, you accept them, but there are rules that you have to follow to get in. And if you don't adhere to those rules, then you shouldn't be a part of that club. And the club shouldn't bend its rules, especially this one, shouldn't bend its rules for other people to come into it. So
But try this. So why? Here's what I kind of wanted to do. Typify for me. Why at the Novus Ordo do 99% of the people not go to confession regularly at all? And then the 1% of the people that go take 20 minutes in confession. Like, would typify the psychology of your average kind of Novus Ordo slob normie guy,
Well, that's difficult for me because the majority of people that I know, like, either went to TAC or UD or Franciscan, and they have a pretty good base in their faith, right? So, but if I was to step outside of that, I think number one, they don't understand that maybe they don't believe in the real presence and they don't understand how important it is to get a confession. I get a confession every week. Even though when I first came back to the church, it was something I dreaded more than anything. And now I look forward to it. Again, you have to go to the right place, which is unfortunate. You do have to kind of figure it out. And as far as the 1% that go in there, they don't understand what it is. It's like a free counseling session. Margaret Blackwell, our mutual friend, always said to me that, be careful when you go in. And again, someone say that I'm, being sexist, but be careful you don't go in behind an older woman, because a lot of the time that's the only time they get a man to listen to them. And I thought that's really funny, but it's true. I mean, the majority of people that go in that take a lot of time, I've found, are older women. I don't know why. I mean, they don't. Again, it's all about education, right? And you guys are way further on in your faith than I am, but I think it's all about being educated and being told what this is about and how to approach it and having courtesy. For example, I went to confession the other day. I waited 2 hours, literally 2 hours, and the priest comes out on the dot, 5 o'clock, smiles and walks off.
Yeah.
And I don't go to that parish, right? That's my, smash glass in case of emergency that I go to for confession. But he just walked off.
I've
Yeah.
grabbed
like,
those priests and put them back in the confessional.
It does. It
I have.
frustrates me.
I'm not kidding.
So anyway, and then on the other hand, what I've had, especially with FSSP priests, they go very deep. They're always there the longest. And they're, when I say the longest, they wait, it doesn't, they'll wait till the last person goes in, doesn't matter how long that is. and then they give a really, really good analysis of, and get into
course.
it with you in
Yeah,
confession. So,
course.
they're really, really great. It's kind of like going to I don't know, it's like the JV and then the varsity, right? Like you
Yeah.
go to
So,
those guys
I mean,
and they really know.
what I'm getting at is like, why is it like that? And Pat, you worked at Catholic Answers for 7 years, which is like sort of the I don't know, prophet to the normies. And that's certainly not what you are, but why is it so stratified? Why is it so dichotomized that you have these? I'm talking about the men. You guys are talking about the confession, of course, the FSSP. They're going to be really good. The priests are really good. The Novus Ordo priests are pretty much.
I know what you're getting. I'll let Patrick go
good.
before I think I know where you're going with this. Like what is actually going on?
I just want to know about the guys you look at around. We're gonna get to the women who you said don't typically have a man to listen to them besides the priest at confession. They don't deserve a man to listen to them besides the priest at confession. But like, why is it so? What's the typical Novus Ordo man attendee, Pat? And then we'll get to the typical trad men. That'll be fun in a second. But
Okay.
why is it such a weird Catholic world? That's what I'm trying to get at. And I'm not talking about the priests. I know the priests are. I mean, I know why it's the weird world, boys. But because the guys that are running the mass are, fundamentally different. They like the Skittles. But I'm talking about the guys next to you if you go to a Novus Ordo, and then we'll do PLM.
Okay. Well, let me take a swing at it. You're asking a systemic problem that is 2 generations old, and it has to do with what happened in 1959 when the aging, they thought he was going to be a bookmark pope who would be here for a couple of years, kind of transition, take a breath, then we'll move on. Pope John the 23rd, Cardinal Roncalli, who had been the nuncio to Venice, and then I think Istanbul, if memory serves. But he was a kindly. He looks like a banana salesman. Actually weirdly resembles.
I've never seen one. I don't know what.
Okay, yeah, it's a Google image is your friend. So in '59, out of the blue, having apparently consulted nobody, or that might be another rabbit hole. Who did he consult? He calls the Second Vatican Council, and from '62 to '65, everything begins to change in the Catholic Church. The relationship between Catholics and the Church changed, and the relationship between the Church and the world changed. And there's so many tentative things in the documents. I'm not talking about the crazy spirit of Vatican II, which we can all agree is problematic. Anthony and I have talked about this on Avoiding Babylon, the before, during, after of Vatican II, in terms of the documents, the letter of the law, not just the spirit of the law. You could multiply examples. To take one example, Section 48 of Gaudium et Spes, the Pastoral Constitution of the Church in the Modern World, mentions contraception. And rather than just condemn it, like all previous popes and councils have done, there's this note of tentativeness. Well, in a footnote it says, Catholics are not free to depart from norms established by the Church, but since the Holy Father is now listening to a natality commission, we're gonna kind of put this aside until he pronounces. Well, it took him 6 more years before Humanae Vitae came out. And by that time, all the dissent had been ginned up, all the protests had been planned, and so on. So that was almost a dead letter. The summer of '68 was the height of the 60s frenzy and free love and all that jazz. And so you have Paul VI takes over from John the 23rd, and what does he do in 1973? But he recruits Jean Jadot, J-A-D-O-T. Jean Jadot was what we used to be called the Apostolic Delegate. Now it's called the Nuncio. And he appoints, the first appointment is Bernard Law, who is, conservative good guy, except that he protected pedophiles and did a horrendous job destroying lives as the Cardinal Archbishop of Boston. He also gave us Rembert Weekland and the whole generation of Bernardine and Gregory and Roger Mahony. This is the homosexualization of the Church in America. So let's apply this to parish life in the Novus Ordo ethos in the United States. I grew up in Canada, moved in the States in the 90s, so I've got a kind of more than one country perspective on this. The Novus Ordo Missae, and you think there's I don't have a dollar on me, but the Novus Ordo Seclorum on the $1 American bill, New World Order, I don't think it's quite a coincidence that the new Mass is called the Novus Ordo Missae, the new Mass, or the new Order of the Mass by Paul VI. I think even when it's reverently done, which can be, I'm not saying it's invalid. I'm not a member of the SSPX. I don't have an agenda against it. However, it's non-binary. It's gender confused. If you go to the traditional Latin Mass for long enough, you begin to see the contrast. And I think Matt is spot on in his critique of the culture of some TLM parishes. There's a kind of a fortress mentality. People look like they've smelled a bad fart. They don't really want to know people's names. There's not that kind of open, my name's Bob, how can I help you? It's just true. That is another blind spot that I think trads can work on, openness to people who are first timers. The Novus Ordo in most parish experiences is neither masculine nor feminine. It's effeminate. It's not red, it's not white, it's pink. Now, the traditional Latin Mass is both masculine and feminine. I didn't say effeminate. It's masculine because you normally have an impressive cadre of all male altar boys, and they do military precision. It's so great to see in my parish the altar boys with their attention to detail, and from 5 years up, they kind of look at the priest as a role model. They want to be like Father. They want to have this participation in the divine liturgy as a very privileged role. I remember I was an altar boy when I was a kid, although it was not traditional Latin Mass, and it was a special time. But the traditional Latin Mass is also feminine. It's beautiful. There tends to be greater attention to the finesses of beauty. The music is beautiful without being effeminate, 1970s era glory and praise Broadway ballads. The vestments are beautiful. There's an attention to elegance and beauty, which is by definition feminine, but it's also masculine. The priest is always male, obviously, and that's a defined doctrine of the church. So there's this balance between something in it for women. They imitate the church. They're called to be the church, the bride. And there's something in it for men. They're meant to imitate the divine bridegroom.